Discover a transformative journey into the kingdom of heaven. Following the initial publication, the author dives deeper with two insightful follow-up books. Ever felt disconnected from God even in worship? Explore how God's unconventional ways can transform your life. How can you align with divine plans, avoiding distractions? Find answers in The Kingdom of Heaven on Earth and The Three, Illuminating Christian Truths and Prophetic Practices. Unlock profound insights guiding you toward a deeper connection with God. Don't miss out. Dive into this enlightening exploration today. Click the link on the caption to get your copy.
Good morning. Welcome to Searching the Heart. I'm doing another episode today. Continuing with one episode I started kind of abruptly, and I thought I should do a second part. Now, I talked about the flat earth theory, and I believe that the flat earth theory is quite related to some of the things I'll be talking about today, because people who believe in the flat earth theory, most likely in the 21st century especially, believe so because they want to protect a system, and most of that system would be a usurper system, and I'll be talking today about the usurper system. Okay, so continuing with the problem with human civilization and subtopic the usurper system. Now, a very, very important characteristic of the usurper system is that it is not interested in truth. It is only interested in protecting an agenda. Okay, and that is why, even with clear evidence, somebody might want to claim that the earth is flat. Now, I am not unaware of reactions to injustice, and sometimes people will want to say, okay, like I talked about some time ago, the creation of the two opposing parts for science and against science in history has created, people who though they were Christians, just take that hard stance that there is no God, okay, and that when talking science, one should never allude to anything religious or the Bible or anything like that. And then also on the other side, the flat earthers come up, okay, because they want to deny any truth in science, okay. So this is the problem. But the most dangerous aspect of these groups of people are the usurpers, okay, the usurper system, and I want to talk about that today, okay. The most dangerous part of the system are usurpers, and the problem with them, before I delve deep into this, I want to say that the problem with them is that many human beings are usurpers, okay. We are all born into this world not knowing anything, our left from our right, okay, and so we tend to be usurpers. The word usurper means somebody who inherits, okay, somebody who takes over a system, okay, not originally belonging to him, okay, or her. So, or even if belonging to him or her, was not initially at the helm. Okay, so this is the issue at stake. The problem with human civilization, the usurper. Okay, we'll be looking at that today. First of all, we'll start with a question, and this question is very important. The question is there a cosmic source to generic human leadership? This is a very, very important question, okay, and this question determines whatever side you take in the whole argument, okay. Is there a generic source, a cosmic source to generic human leadership? And in this case, are we talking about God, the question of the existence of God, the question of the existence of an evil counter to God, which is Satan. Okay, and of course, if so, what is the source of human beings? Okay, we know for certain that in Greek mythology and philosophy, possibly, human beings or the physical world is said to be created by an evil deity. Okay, that is Greek mythology. Okay, but of course in Christian theology, God himself, the good God, created the world. Okay, the physical world. So the dilemma is knowing the identity of, if there is any evil being called Satan. Okay, and over the ages there have been descriptions of this evil being within Christian theology. Of course, other religions may have it in different forms. Yes, they are dichotomizing between good and evil in terms of evil spirits and good spirits. And in most traditional religions, there is no real hard line between good spirits and evil spirits, or there is most likely no supreme deity above all these existent principalities. Okay, so this is what we see here. Okay, so we'll go. So, is there a cosmic source to generate human leadership? Okay, now I want to approach this not in the usual way. I have done this about reality. I've done a defense on the existence of God before, quoting Aristotle, and those ancient philosophers. Okay, and of course adding my own bit. So you can go to that video for more on that. Okay. But today I will be concentrating on the concept of leadership itself. Historically, we tend to look at leaders. Some people will say leaders are born. Okay, others will say leaders are made. What side do you want to take in this argument? Whatever side you take, you will be answering the question: what is the cosmic source? Okay, to leadership. What determines what a leader does? Okay, since we all come into the world without, so-called tabula rasa, nothing, as blank slates with nothing in our minds. Okay, what is the real source of human leadership? Okay, we need to answer that. Mostly, the agenda of a leader, for many people, describes what his source is. Okay, if people see your agenda as good, of course they might, attribute your existence to a good or benevolent existence somewhere. Okay, if they interpret your existence as for the sake of evil, for the sake of meting out evil or terrible things on the people, like death and destruction, of course they will attribute your existence to something else. Okay, something that they consider evil. So this is the issue at stake, and we must not run away from this. Okay, when you take an atheistic stand to this question, you might want to run away from quickly making such delineations or decisions on the source of leadership. But when you don't, you tend to quickly do this. And this is the difference. Okay, we face a more difficult task in categorizing leaders or giving them the name that they may deserve when we take an atheistic stance, because we are forced to scientifically prove our point or our stance that this person means well for the community or does not. Okay, so this is the problem that we face with an atheistic stance, because we have to prove it, and it is very difficult to prove it. Okay, so this is what we need to know. Okay, so the source, the way a leader, okay, whatever his agenda is, shows us what he wants to achieve, and it takes time, because most of, like what we're experiencing here in Nigeria, a very large percentage of the voting populace are young people. Okay, they are young people who never saw the days of the Babangida regime, never saw the Abacha regime. Okay, maybe were born at that time. Okay, never saw the Shonikon regime. Never saw, probably just saw the beginnings of the Obasanjo regime, and so are unable to really make an informed choice of what should obtain in this time. Okay, and so this is the issue. Okay, how can they really decide if this leader is good or that leader is bad? You know, or if the leader means well for the community, and it's very important. Okay, so this is what we see. Okay, is there a cosmic source to generic human leadership? So the question is, we return to the main question: is there a God? And it's not just one question. Is the God a good God? That is the thing. Okay, is there God, and is he good? Okay, and if he is good, should we follow him? How do we know whether to follow him? These are very complicated questions, and they are not easily answered. Okay, so this is the question that is at the very basis of human civilization and needs to be answered. Okay, including the source of human beings. In many theologies, there are many answers to this question of the source of human beings. And some of the major theologies that dominate the world, like I've already mentioned, the Christian theology. And the Christian theology has its source from the Jewish theology. But there are other theologies also that influence world thinking and have, whether we like it or not, very close links to the Jewish and the Christian traditions. And this is the Hindu tradition, okay, and close to that is the Buddhist tradition. And very close also to all these is the African traditional worldview. Okay, so these influence what we believe about the source of human beings. Of course, in the atheistic point of view, human beings are just an accident. Okay, and for them this explains why we lack the ability to solve our problems, especially as individuals. Okay, and it takes so much time for us to solve our problems because we are closely related to animals. Okay, and of course, being accidents, this will be naturally understood. Okay, so the source of human beings is very important. And to round up on this issue, if we knew the source of human leadership, okay, we would be able to now say, okay, we will choose this one instead of this one. Okay, this is very important. Okay, and I will spend the rest of this video trying to answer this question. Okay, so I'll be looking at true leaders and usurpers. Okay, usurpers, like I said in my usage in this very video, of which I also did in the book The Kingdom of Heaven on Earth, is the tendency for usurpers to be merely copyists. Okay, we are all copies, we are all usurpers, like I've said, but at a point the individual matures and begins to own, okay, a viewpoint, owns a philosophy, an ideology, and is convinced that this philosophy and ideology is a solution to human problems. And when he is convinced about this, he stops being a usurper and he becomes a leader. Okay, so this is the issue. There is a dichotomy between true leaders and usurpers. Now this is having solved the problem of the source. Okay, we have to first, as individuals, solve the problem of the source, and as academics, as leaders in whatever thing we're doing, solve the problem of the source and be convinced within us that this source is better than that source, okay, and whatever we believe, okay. So there are leaders and there are usurpers, that are people that are still usurpers, copyists, okay. And when a person remains a usurper or a copyist, the person tends not to have any genuine vision or mission, okay. Just wants leadership for the sake of leadership, or for the sake of prosperity, selfish aims, okay. So in Christianity we see it as, okay, the source of denominations, okay, because denominations become what they are because they generally disagree with the direction of leadership, okay. And if at all this institution, of course popularly Christianity, is still what it is and depends on the very source, its very source, which is Jesus Christ and his theology, of course there is no need for the development of denominations, okay, because they would, all proponents of that religion will generally agree on the foundation of that religion, okay. But when there is a disagreement, it shows that the founding principles have been diverted from, okay. And once they are diverted from, this creates what we know as denominationalism, okay. So usurpation is the source of denominationalism. Usurpation is the source, whether because one person wants leadership and he is denied, okay, a genuine follower of that concept, of that organization, or that would stay in there, okay, and still push the agendas of the community, whether he has been given leadership or not, okay. But a rift, a genuine rift will develop when the very founding principles of that organization have been tampered with. And this is just the point I'm trying to make, okay. So another principle that creates this dichotomy between true leaders and usurpers is the principle of predestination, okay. The Bible says, for he who foreknew us also predestined us, okay. And it is a very, very controversial concept. The principle of predestination is very, very controversial, okay. It assumes, I have talked about this before, but I'm going to just quickly talk about it. It assumes that there is God, first and foremost, and God now has decided that a particular group of people are acceptable to him and another set are not. And in that sense, that means there has been an infringement into his creative purpose. And we see that in Genesis chapter 6, where the sons of God married daughters of men and they gave birth to the Nephilim. So in that case, diluting the original source of the human race, okay. And in this sense, that is why it is a very controversial subject, okay. And most people would run away from this because it creates a lot of dilemmas. So this is the problem with predestination, okay. And this would assume that certain leaders are genuinely from God, even from their generic source, and certain leaders are from Satan or an evil source, okay, and so mean us harm, okay. So this is some of the hidden theology behind certain religions that even myself, I agree, makes them dangerous, okay. And some people believe that religion should be de-emphasized because of that. But when we de-emphasize religion, we still have the tribal issues, okay, because tribes also believe in these kinds of philosophy, okay. If you're a member of my tribe, you are pure blood, you are pure, and another person is not, okay. So this is the issue at stake. Okay, excuse me. Now, and to kind of take a side, and this is emphasizing the Christian theology, you find that people who are usurpers and not good leaders have nothing to gain or lose from good or bad leadership. Okay, they are purely selfish. Okay, they have nothing to gain or lose, especially from good leadership. They don't have anything to gain from good leadership, so they are programmed to usurp no matter what. They are programmed to steal from genuine leadership no matter what. Okay, and that is their vision in life and mission in life. So after establishing this, okay, there is definitely a dichotomy between true leaders and usurpers, or you might want to add the word good leaders. Okay, you know, in philosophical discourse, you don't want to allude to absolutism. You want to give open room for divergences. Okay, so I use the word true leaders. Okay, but if you want, you can use the word good leaders. So there is a dichotomy between true leaders and usurpers. Okay, and so we will go ahead and look at the characteristics of usurpers, because I told you I have a bias, and that is Christian theology. Okay, so I am saying that, of course, usurpers, people who never mature to a certain degree. Nobody matures completely, but people who never mature to a certain degree in their ideology, in their belief or stance in life, tend to be usurpers. Okay, they never have a position, and that position, whatever position they take, would never benefit human beings, okay, or human civilization as a whole. That's my Christian bias. Okay, so let me now name characteristics of usurpers so that we can understand what I'm saying. Now, usurpers, I've already mentioned that good leadership never benefits them for any reason. They have nothing to gain, okay, from good leadership. I've mentioned that already. But another characteristic is they have no reason to feed an original vision. Okay, they have no reason to feed or to support an original vision. Okay, but they benefit from stealing or killing the vision. Okay, so this is the one of the characteristics of usurpers, in addition to the fact that they don't benefit from good leadership. Okay, they don't benefit no matter what it is. They don't care. Okay, their own is selfishness, what they can gain in the immediate situation. Okay, and I mentioned in past episodes that this creates the 666. They allude to practical life problems. Okay, they can't feed their family. Okay, there's many excuses, and so for that reason they would compromise with evil just to get food or money. Okay. Number two is that they benefit from crisis and war. Okay, if you look at the world system, as I have often criticized, it is very much dependent on crises, on the absence of stability. If a week, for the past, I think, 10 years or so, if there is no crisis around the world, for a month, something will happen just to bring crisis. Okay, and this, I have often said, sometimes can be linked to media. Okay, and I think it's a pitfall of being in the media industry. Okay, the industrial complex, also the military industrial complex. Okay, you know, they benefit from selling weapons, and so of course benefit from crisis. So these are the issues. Okay, a usurper does not believe in peace. Okay, for a Christian, weapons of war are only there as a deterrent, not as a means, you know, to any end, but only as a deterrent. Okay, but these people actually benefit from crises and from war. Okay, that's how we know a usurper, somebody who has no genuine initiative for human civilization. Okay, does not know what it is all about, and so, as Miles Monroe will say, if purpose is misunderstood, abuse is inevitable. Okay, abuse is inevitable. So we see that also happening in the Middle Eastern crisis. And for me, the lack of peace in the Middle East is very much linked to the usurper mentality. Okay, something happened about 3,000 to 5,000 years ago in the Middle East, and there has been this tussle to take ownership of that thing. Okay, to claim credit for what happened. Was it a miracle? Okay, science is still debating with religion on that. Okay, the source of human civilization itself, the Middle East, is the source of modern human civilization. Okay, and okay, that is why it's such a contentious place. Okay, it's so full of crises, and of course the usurper mentality creates this because of that ignorance of the source. It always wants to be associated with the source, and so the crisis continues, and it is associated with religion most of the time. I have been in the middle of such crises, even as I speak to you just right now. Okay, people want to be associated with miraculous happenings. Okay, things that prove that God exists. Okay, or something like that, and so they believe that this is a source to prosperity, and so they come close to it. Okay, and they fight to gain some kind of ownership of it because it is easy to get. It is also associated with minerals, whether oil or solid minerals. Okay, whenever there is a discovery and prosperity, there is possible prosperity from this discovery, people just gather around it to get from this because they have a usurper mentality. Okay, they want to benefit from this no matter what because it is easy to do so. Okay, so this is the thing. So the world system really thrives on this, and this is why the world system is described as an evil system, because it does not truly lead, it only usurps. Okay, it does not lead.
Discover a transformative journey into the kingdom of heaven. Following the initial publication, the author dives deeper with two insightful follow-up books. Ever felt disconnected from God even in worship? Explore how God's unconventional ways can transform your life. How can you align with divine plans, avoiding distractions? Find answers in The Kingdom of Heaven on Earth and The 3, Illuminating Christian Truths and Prophetic Practices. Unlock profound insights guiding you toward a deeper connection with God. Don't miss out. Dive into this enlightening exploration today. Click the link on the caption to get your copy.
We're still looking at the characteristics of usurpers. Okay? Another characteristic of usurpers is the heavy use of propaganda. Okay? The very heavy use of propaganda. They rely a lot on the media, like I said, sometimes paying the media to spread falsehood, and they heavily rely on rumors, the rumor mill. Okay, because the rumor mill is not regulated. Okay, and that is the easiest way to spread falsehood, to spread lies, and thereby defeat your enemy. Okay, and so they rely very heavily on that. If you notice, this is why the social media has really grown. Social media is there in the middle. Okay, sometimes it can be used for positive aims. Okay, and that is why it has spread so fast, because it kind of counters the rumor mill, so that the person who has a counter opinion can air his own opinion. But the social media is still being limited by censorship. Okay, because of the human nature, what in Christianity we call the human nature. Okay, the human nature, of course, the usurper mentality does not want truth. It hates truth, so it kind of censors the truth. Okay, so there is a very heavy use of propaganda through the rumor mill. Okay, and then the usurper hates education. And I'm talking of education, this includes information, okay, truthful information. It hates it, okay. It tries to hide the truth behind the news, okay, and it hates education. And we see it today in the hatred of Western education. And I'm not just talking about the Boko Haram or the Islamist insurgency. I'm talking about conventional human society. Okay, the US is struggling with that problem right now. Okay, I mean, over the past 5 or 6 years. Okay, the attack on the educational system, and there's this push and pull on what they are to do with the educational system. Okay, how to reform the educational system. So it hates education, especially the Western education, because the Western education has roots in Christianity. Okay, so that is why they hate it so much. Okay, and of course in traditionalism, okay, if you have not been born and bred in a traditional society, you wouldn't know how much a traditional religions, I'm talking about, that practice necromancy, hate our Western education. So the hatred of Western education that is in Islam is often overemphasized. There's a lot of hatred of Western education in traditionalism, okay, the traditional religions. Another characteristic of the usurper mentality is that the end justifies the means. They don't care. This is very much seen sometimes in the capitalist economies. Okay, this is part of the weakness of the capitalist economy, because of the emphasis on money, on prosperity. You know, there is that tendency that the end justifies the means. Okay, so they don't care how the things are done, just as there's food on his or her table. Okay, they don't really care. So this is the problem, okay, with the usurper mentality, and that is very bad leadership. And that is what nurtures bad leadership. The very idea of politics is sustained on this. The disregard for how things are done, rather on what is achieved at the end. And that expectation is that there is seen to be prosperity. Okay, but soon it is discovered that the how matters, because the how now dictates the future. Because if things are done that way continuously, of course there is a result at the end, and that result may not be for the better. Okay, so this is a problem that we see. And very importantly, in the final point here in understanding the usurper mentality is that it has an agenda. Okay, the end usually has already been determined and nothing can change it. Okay, and this is the negative, when I was talking about predestination, this is the negative consequence of an undefined belief in predestination. Okay, because it's also a characteristic of the usurper mentality. Okay, that is why some religions don't allow their followers to reason. They don't allow their followers to be educated, because education causes reason and might cause rebellion. Okay, and so because they believe that the God they serve has already determined the end, whatever you do does not matter. But this is false. Okay, based on the Christian definition of human beings, humanity, because humanity is created in the image of God. Okay, and a human being that does not think is not a human being. Okay, and unfortunately some forms of Christianity have also accepted these kinds of definitions. Okay, and of course are the source of many of the problems. I'm rounding up on this edition of the problem with human civilization. I'm talking about the usurper mentality, and I have reached that point of which I wanted to get to. And the question is why Christianity is often a target of this usurper mentality. Christianity is the target, okay? And it is not surprising because, of course, Christianity aims to entrench the generic leadership of God Himself, the author of the universe. And we know that the Christian Bible is a conceptual book, okay? It traces the source of humanity from the generic source, okay? And it is very conceptual. So anything that is conceptual borders on the truth, okay? It might not be fully scientific, but borders on the truth. Science itself may not be always truthful, depending on who is applying it, okay? But it should be very scientific and very much commonsensical. And this is what Christianity is all about, okay? And that is why it is the main target of usurpation, okay? Christianity, and that is why there is no peace in the Middle East, because the Middle East is the source of Christianity, okay, through Judaism, of course. So this is the problem that we need to understand, okay? And of course, because the usurper mentality generally feeds on the difficulty associated with the human condition, that the human condition pampers laziness and depends a lot excessively on the number, okay, the size of a community as human individuals, okay. So it depends so much on this, okay, to usurp the system, as it were, okay, and create and insist on those things it sees as continuing with its agenda from the beginning, okay. As I said, it claims to know the end from the beginning, of course, and so its end is clearly to divert from the original end, which has been put forward by God Himself, okay. So because of that aim, you cannot convince it. A normal human being can be convinced, okay, to change his mind or her mind. Hence the book I wrote, The Right to Be Wrong, okay. But of course, you know, many of these usurpatory sources don't believe that people should be allowed to reason, okay. And so all they aim is to establish a particular aim at the end of the whole thing, okay. So this is the problem that we have here, and this is the cause of the tumbling and the diversion of human society, okay, into crises, into self-destruction. I am David Dunji for you today in Searching the Heart.
Discover a transformative journey into the kingdom of heaven. Following the initial publication, the author dives deeper with two insightful follow-up books. Ever felt disconnected from God even in worship? Explore how God's unconventional ways can transform your life. How can you align with divine plans, avoiding distractions? Find answers in The Kingdom of Heaven on Earth and The 3, Illuminating Christian Truths and Prophetic Practices. Unlock profound insights guiding you toward a deeper connection with God. Don't miss out. Dive into this enlightening exploration today. Click the link on the caption to get your copy.